welcome to Advanced English for Exams. My name is Vladimir and today we're going to talk about my experience of taking CPE this year. Straight after receiving my results, I recorded one video where I talked about my experience and what I had done before that. And today I'm going to answer all of the questions which I received from you. Thank you so much for all of the questions. We have divided all of the questions into several categories. The first one would be the general questions. The second one, the materials I used in order to get prepared. Skills, what did I do in order to master the skills necessary for the exam? What did I do in order to improve and maintain the level of the English language fluency? Some information about the tutors and some random questions which we couldn't put into any of the categories. So without further ado, let's get started. I got 229 points out of 230. And of course, some people asked me what I had done in order to achieve these results. Well, many things. Of course, we need to understand the simple truth when it comes to exam preparation, especially when we talk about CE or proficiency. We think about not just 2 months of preparation, 3 months of preparation, not even a year of preparation. We're talking about the general exposure to the English language, what we had done before that. We're talking about years of studies. So when it comes to some magic pill, I don't know, some magic potion which I had taken, I had none. I think that the result of my exam just amounts to all of the years of preparation beforehand. At the same time, we need to bear in mind that this is not my first attempt. I have taken the exam before, right? It was 2018 and I got 228 points. And since then, of course, my attitude towards the exam has changed a lot. I look at the exam from a slightly different perspective. And I think that the things I did, they were completely different. So I used different materials and I practiced different skills, at least this time. And in this video, we're going to talk a lot about those things. If we talk about the materials I have used, so there was this question from Julia when she asked about top 3 books I would recommend when it comes to speaking and writing skills. Well, I can't really say top 3 things. I will just be mentioning a couple of books which I consider to be extremely important while practicing both writing and speaking. I think I must mention Listening and Speaking by Virginia Evans. Again, if we talk about the same author, then Successful Writing Proficiency, absolutely marvelous book when it comes to the conventions of the communicative task and when we need to understand what to do, what not to do, what to show, what not to show, because after all, we understand that the exam is mostly about box ticking, meaning that we need to show them some special skills that they're looking for. What else? I think that great essays would be a very good choice. There would be a book by National Geographic. So they have 5 different books for different levels. And so they start from A1 and they finish with very advanced essays. And it gives one an understanding of how to become flexible in your writing. Because when it comes to let's say, the conventions, more often than not, we just look at it from just very narrow point, and we think that it should be just for and against essays or only opinion essays. But at the same time, we need to understand that this is a bit lower than it should be. Talking about speaking and materials one can use, I think that you definitely need to look through all of the past papers Cambridge gives us. And these are not just the new 2 books, right? We have 2 books by Cambridge with past papers. But at the same time, we can easily use the materials from the old edition because speaking part has not changed a bit. And when it comes to all of the necessary aspects Cambridge likes asking about, I think that would help a lot. And of course, it will speak volumes in the future, because when you know that they can ask you about, let's say, history, or you know that they can talk about art, and you know that there are certain vocabulary items you can use in your speaking because you have practiced that before, that of course will become easy. However, we should not forget about the simplest truth. We should not just rely only on books. Good writing is a writing which is natural writing. Good speaking is speaking which sounds absolutely natural. So if you just memorize everything by heart, if you, I don't know, learn hundreds or even thousands of words from C1, C2 levels, and then you use them in the context which is not really appropriate, your speech and your writing will sound absolutely artificial. And of course, you can't get decent points for these two skills. So when it comes to the things you can do to practice, I think that you should, in terms of writing, of course, you need to just write more. It can be essays, it can be articles, it can be even a blog. When it comes to speaking, you can just talk to different people, right? Because you will understand what to use, what not to use, and your vocabulary, which you have accumulated throughout your years of the studying, you will understand that there are some words which you find yours, so it means that you can use them easily. And at the same time, there are going to be some words which are not very familiar, because every time you try to use this word, it will sound a bit clumsy, maybe wordy, and of course you need to change that a bit. To master your reading skills and writing skills, because I think that the more you read, the better your writing will become, because sooner or later you'll start, I don't know, copying and adapting the things you have learned before. I think that one will have to read some modern magazines where you can see the language of today. Of course, I would recommend reading, let's say, The Guardian or Economist, New Yorker. I think that these three would be my most favorite. And at the same time, we should not think that reading some books from, let's say, the 20th century would be a bad idea. Of course not. The language, of course, has changed, but at the same time, when we talk about this exposure to the language, when we talk about, let's say, passive knowledge and the depth of the vocabulary and grammar structures, I think reading some materials from well-known authors will be absolutely invaluable. There were quite a few questions about speaking. What did I do in order to improve my speaking? Because after all, this is the only skill, I think, which has changed. Now it's 227 or 8, I don't really remember, and I don't really think that it matters much. So 5 or 6 points, I think that's not a lot, but still it means that something has improved. And to do that, of course, I had to do something. There was this question about native speakers and whether I talk to them or not, and how often I do that. Of course, I practice with the native speakers, and before the exam, I practiced with 3. One of them is a well-known person on VK. That would be Mike Brennan. He has a very good community on VK, and if you don't know about this community, I will leave the link into the comment section. So we practiced a bit with him. At the same time, I had a couple of tutors from England and from Canada, because I wanted to be exposed to different kinds of languages. So I talked to Ashley from the Great Britain and Dave. Yeah, I almost forgot his name because it's been a while. And I talked to Dave, and where we were discussing various of topics, starting from, I don't know, living on Mars and cooking cucumbers in the morning. So it could be pretty much anything. That's why that was absolutely amazing. And the best thing about all of those lessons with Mike, with Ashley, and with Dave was the simple fact that we didn't really practice exam skills. We were just talking, and in the long run, I think it helped a lot. And when I talk to native speakers, of course, there are several things which I always try to notice in their speech. The first one would be the words they use, because when it comes to the precision, I think precision, collocations, and the way they express their ideas, that would always be something which will be very difficult to achieve for a non-native speaker. Right? They would use smaller words when it's necessary. And when it comes to, let's say, higher level, C1 and C2, I think it's just ingrained in us. We want to show off always, right? Instead of saying the word, let's say, I don't know, difficult, we would go for something strenuous. However, sometimes this word will be absolutely out of context and it would sound a bit weird. And at high levels, of course, we should sound as natural as possible. So that would be one of those things. Another thing I think I would pay attention to their grammar choice, because, you know, I'm an English teacher, and of course there are certain things which I would be considering absolutely terrible, like they are sport chairs. For me, that would be like a taboo phrase. Whereas, of course, a lot of native speakers would use these phrases in their speech because for them it sounds okay. And there are several things which I noticed in them. The first one would be the phrases like number of and amount of, right? They would misuse the two. The same would go for little and few in their speech when they speak very quickly. What else? And sentence agreement. So like, I'm a person who think, or I'm a person who thinks, right? Sometimes they will have different opinions on this matter, because again, the language is changing and the rules are changing. And after all, there are certain things which they feel better about than the English language. So I think grammar and vocabulary, and why, more importantly, why they went for this very word or this very phrase in their speech. When it comes to writing, it's a completely different story, because I see difference, and the difference is just very noticeable. In 2018, I would write pretty much every day. So before going to bed, I would write a paragraph. So I wouldn't write the whole piece, like the whole essay or a whole article, you name it. I would probably go for just one paragraph from different genres. So today it can be a report, tomorrow it can be an article, then it can be a review. This year I didn't practice that much, but I think that teaching helped me a lot. Since I mark a lot of writings on an everyday basis, because my students would do that, it means I have this clear picture of what is good and what is not good. And when I write myself, I always keep in mind the things which I would notice were I to mark somebody's writing. So the things I would want to see in their writings and the things I would not want to see in their writings, and I would probably correct it. That is why when it comes to writing in general, I think still the most important thing would be to practice. So write something and have it revised. Of course, if you have a person who can comment on what you have written, that would be perfect. And it doesn't really mean that you need to have a teacher to help you with it. I think that you can send your writing to pretty much anyone. It can be your friend who speaks decent English, or it can be a native speaker, or it can be a study buddy. And the only question I think you should ask them at high levels would not be the level of grammar and vocabulary and the patterns you have used, but the question of, like a simple question, whether they liked it or they didn't. And if they didn't, what exactly didn't they like? Because when you see that, when they tell you, like, okay, everything was all right, but then there was the sentence which I didn't understand, you can revise that sentence, and then your writing will flow in the future. Again, when it comes to high levels, unfortunately, learners tend to make things super complicated. So they would use inversions, cleft sentences, passives, modals, participles, and I'm talking about just one sentence, right? Their writing will become cramped, overcomplicated and absolutely irreadable, right? Because a normal human being will not understand what has been written. I think that good writing is a writing which is thought-provoking, but not mind-boggling, right? If you have a piece and then this piece is read by a friend of yours and they say that I didn't understand what you wanted to say, then forgive me, your piece is not good enough. You need to change it. You need to revise it. And after that, it will come better and better and better and better. Writing is a skill. And of course, it can be mastered. There was another question concerning writing, and it was about the word limit. Unfortunately, all of us, well, we live in the reality of national state exam, right? Infamous EGA. And when it comes to EGA, we know the simple truth and the saddest truth. If you exceed the word limit, they will not check the part which is not there. And if you write too few words, it means that they will not check your writing at all. However, in Cambridge, they are not Nazis. They wouldn't do that, and they will check your writing nonetheless. So if you write too many words, they will still check it. So it means that if you write 500 words, then they will read those 500 words. And if you write, let's say, 20 words, they will still read it. However, we need to understand that they have this word limit for a reason, and this reason should help you as a writer and as a learner. We have this part in the criteria, which is called content. And if you write too much, most probably you will start writing about irrelevant things. Therefore, some of the parts would be irrelevant, meaning that your grade will go down. And of course, there is the other side of the coin. If you write too few words, it means that most probably you will not cover all of the key points of the question. And that's a problem. And of course, your points will go down. There is another thing, of course. If you write too many words, then sooner or later, your grammar structures, they will become repetitive. So it means that your writing will become boring. Or, on the other hand, if you write too few words, most probably you will not use enough grammar structures to impress the examiner, because your writing will become too simple, right? You will not use everything you know. So, and of course, your language band will not be as high either. However, it doesn't mean that you should not stop. You should stop writing if you have like 10 minutes and you understand that you will not have enough time to write 200 words in your writing. Still write something. They will still check it, and you'll still get at least something. And we understand that when it comes to Cambridge, something is better than nothing. And in order to pass and to get your certificate, you need to get 24 points for your writing paper, which means that you can write an excellent essay and get 20 out of 20, and then write a lousy, let's say, a report and get just 6 points, because it would be just, I don't know, 100 words and that's it, because you didn't have time. But still, overall, you will get 26 and you'll pass, right? So don't panic. Even if you feel that time flies and you don't have enough time to write everything, write at least something, that something will be checked. There were quite a few questions about improving my language abilities and maintaining, and I think that this, it will be even more important. Like, how can one maintain their current language level, what they can do, how they can do that, and more importantly, whether they need to do that. You know what? I always think that language is water, right? And it means that with time, it evaporates. So if you stop practicing just within a couple of months, you'll start forgetting things. And if you stop practicing, you know, this water thing will become stinky, right? And the language will not be as beautiful as it used to be. So metaphorically speaking, you need to do something with this water. You need to change it, right? You need to filter it, right? You need to do something so that this water does not become a swarm, right? But becomes like a river or at least a lake, right? And to do that, we can do several things. Of course, we need to practice. I'm talking about real life practice. I'm not talking about practicing books. I have many, right? I have, even when it comes to CPE preparation, I think like I have more than 20 books for C1 and C2 levels. But when it comes to real life practicing, I wouldn't just practice with a book. I would watch a movie. I would read an article from The Guardian. I will read a book. I will be talking to friends of mine. I will write something. So I will use the language in, let's say, in the wild, not in the zoo, because real language is different, right? And there are several things which sound a bit weird when you hear them only in the books. That's why when it comes to writing, let's return to writing for a bit. I hate words like plethora in people's writing, or words like conundrum in their writing, because these are the words which or like overarching thing or overarching topic. These are the things which you normally see in textbooks, but you don't see them very often in real life. And then there is a big question whether you can demonstrate real flexibility, or you can use the several chunks which you've seen only in the book, right? So when it comes to even learning things, check them. There are several websites where you can check the usage of the phrase. It can be phrased, it can be Ludwig, it can be Youglish, right? These are the sources where you can just Google the phrase and see whether this phrase is used, right? Whether it is a strong collocation or just a strange metaphor which the author of the book wanted to use in their book just because it sounds beautiful to them. But we need to understand that maybe in that very sentence where you saw the phrase, it was okay, but in the other sentence, it will become absolutely lousy. Like a very good example of that would be a collocation like give birth to. It's a fine collocation at a C1 level, beautiful phrase. But if you say something like, just the other day, I met a lady who gave birth to my brother, this sentence will sound absolutely weird because the lady who gave birth to my brother is my mother. And in this very situation, I should use that word, not the other word. And if I were to Google the phrase, like a lady who gave birth to my brother using Youglish or Ludwig or phrase it, I'll see that no one speaks this way. That is why this is an artificial phrase, which I wouldn't use at high levels at all. At the same time, learning the language should not be, sailing in the open waters, right? Still, one needs to have a plan, because otherwise there are going to be situations when some of the skills becomes better and like way better, right? And it's very difficult to mend it. That is why it's better to have a plan. And if you study alone, pick a book, pick any course book, and then it will give you a strong syllabus, like gives list of topics, list of things one has to master, both in terms of grammar, vocabulary, in terms of reading, writing, and listening. It means that in the future, if you are to prepare for the exam, all of the skills will be covered already, and there are going to be fewer things to do in the future. So you'll be mainly working on the formats of the exam, and you'll be thinking a lot about the technicalities, but not like the pillars of the language acquisition. When you have this plan, it means that you can progress, and you will see your progress easily because, okay, last year I couldn't talk about traveling. This year I can. Last year I couldn't use narrative tenses easily. This year I can. It means that you will have a vivid list of milestones ahead of you, and your desired dream, your certificate, will not be just looming somewhere on the horizon and you will never grab it. It will be something just around the corner, and you'll understand that within this period of time or that period of time, you'll get it. So of course you need to have a plan. And talking about the amount of time one needs to allocate to study the language, I would be absolutely old school here. I don't think that one has to practice the language once a week, but spend, let's say, 4 hours. I think that you should practice every day and spend, let's say, 30 minutes. 30 minutes a day. I think it will give you more progress than just 4 or 5 hours just once a week. Because with baby steps, you become more independent, you become more flexible, and in the future, it will be very easy for you to see your progress, right? So like the best plan, 30 minutes a day. If you don't have 30 minutes a day, well, do at least something. Read a book before you go to bed. Watch a YouTube video, right? Analyze it. Oh, by the way, analyzing what you do would be of utmost importance, because at this level, at C1 and C2, we tend to just treat something for pleasure. Of course, it's great, but we don't study when we read for pleasure. That is why when I practice, I normally do things in a completely different way. So if I read an article and I want to practice with an article, I would highlight things, I will write down the words or phrases, and in the future, I will be practicing those things. I will try to use those things. I will create a Quizlet, or I will write the things down in my notebook, and then I will revise the words. I will try to use these words with my students when I have lessons, because I'm pretty sure that they can benefit from it too. And of course, I wouldn't do these things just 10 minutes before I go to bed. Right? 10 minutes before I go to bed, I want to relax. Right? I want to put my feet up and do something just because I want to. That is why when I practice, I would do that probably in the morning before my lessons, when I'm still full of hopes, right? And I still have some strength and desire to do something. So mornings, they will help you. All right. And one more question connected to the idea of maintaining and improving your language skills. What is the best study plan, keeping in mind the fact that one has to work? For this very reason, I think one can find a tutor, because a tutor will always will keep in mind the fact that you are working, and they will try to teach you only the important things, like the things which will be necessary for you in the future. And if you're pressed for time and you don't have years ahead of you when you prepare for the exam, I think that finding a qualified teacher will actually help you a lot. So you can consider that. Okay, so let's move on to the next rubric. That would be all of the questions connected to tutors. And we received a very good question, and I will just read it for you. Is it possible to pass an exam and get at least a C without a tutor? Well, I think that it is possible. Everything is possible. You can get a C, you can get a B, you can get even an A. However, there is a big question whether it is going to be easy or not. One can learn how to swim on their own, right? They can go to the river, they can jump, and perhaps they will become excellent swimmers in the future. However, we need to be absolutely honest with each other. If we go to the sports school, right, and we find a coach, most probably we will learn how to swim in no time, and it will be safer, right? And you'll see your progress much faster. So what I think here would be absolutely wise to find a tutor, a qualified teacher, an experienced teacher who has both expertise in language and the exam itself, who have taken the exam themselves and passed it well. So you are satisfied with their grades. And they have students who have passed the exam and receive the results you are satisfied with too, right? So it will give you a clear understanding of what is going to happen to you in the future. So it's going to be much easier. And if you are on a budget and you can't afford lessons, then I think you can consider some individual sessions with a teacher, let's say once or maybe once a month or once, I don't know, a season, where you can discuss some writing issues, you can discuss some speaking issues, you can ask them for some recommendations of what you need to do in the future in terms of honing your skills, mastering your writing, mastering your speaking. There are people out there who have prepared for the exams on their own and they have passed. So I'm pretty sure that you can do the same. However, as I mentioned, it's going to be much easier to do that with a coach. And to finish my webinar, I wanted to discuss one more question. I got this from Marina and she asked me what motivates me. And even though the question itself is super simple, I understand that I have changed. Had I been asked this question a couple of years back, I would have said something like, I studied the language for the sake of learning, right? For the sake of knowledge, just for the sake of English, right? I wanted to become a very flexible speaker myself. And now I will answer this question differently. I think that it is my students that motivates me most. When I see their progress, when I see what they could do in September and what they can do in May, what they learned throughout this year, I understand that if I want them to be with me in the future, I will have to progress myself too. So I know that every summer I will grab those books and I will look through the chapters again and again and again. I will revise the vocabulary, I will read more articles and I will write more, because I understand that in September, when I have new students in the group, I will still have to impress them somehow. So for me, that's a never-ending story. I hope that it is a never-ending story for you too. All right, guys, this is the end for today. I hope that you enjoyed this video and may we meet again. See you, goodbye.